Okay, it's going live.
Awesome. Okay.
All right. Here we are. Let's get started here today. We are live. Dean, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about how to save money with color management in Flexi. This is the Flexi Color Trilogy live here on YouTube, and we're doing part 2 of the trilogy. Last week we did Color Workflow 101. We talked about how to get profiles and how to get your basic color workflow going. And this week we're talking about spot color matching made easy. And then next week we're going to be talking about how to actually take control of your color and how to build ICC profiles.
Nice. All right, so why don't we just go ahead and get started? We'll start with the first thing is, so we're like Dean said, we're on part 2 of the spot color matching part of this presentation. So the first thing we want to talk about is what is, when we start to get into the spot color matching thing, how can we match colors? Well, there's several different ways that this can do. We can do this with our eyes, first of all. We can use a small measuring device like we see here, like one of these little small devices that hook up via USB or Bluetooth, or we can go to the higher end spectrum where we're talking about $1,200 plus and whatnot. So we're talking about the i1 Pro X-Rite devices, the Barbieris, the different things like that. So this is kind of where we're going to focus in on this lesson. By the way, actually, before we get too far, if you guys that are watching, if you have any questions, we've got a question and answer session at the very end. We've got somebody, Bennett, watching the comments. So if you guys ask any questions, we will get to those and we'll ask those at the very end, and we'll kind of cover anything that comes up. So keep those questions, send them in whenever you have something, and then we'll get to it at the end. So we got measurement devices. So first of all, we can eyeball it. This is actually a fairly common way to do it if we're just trying to get somewhere close to the color that we want. The idea would be that we would need to print a color chart for every media that we do, so banner, glossy vinyl, that kind of thing. We would find the matching color, and then we would find and use that particular ink value. So if you run your sample across your printed chart, you can say, hey, this color is exactly the one that the customer wants to use. And then all we have to do is punch in that color into our software, and we can get a match. So this is really easy in Flexi, mainly because we can just print out any color chart that you want. I'm going to give you the verbal instructions here, and I'm going to actually kind of walk you through it step by step on what this looks like. So in the picture here, you can see our already preloaded CMYK color chart. So to load this, you're going to go to the View menu. You're going to click Create Swatch. You'll click Current Palette, and then you'll create the chart based on which palette you want it to do. And then you'll just send that right to the production manager. So let's just take a look at that real quick and see what that actually looks like. So I got Flexi pull up here, and it's just a blank document. And I'm going to go to my View menu. I'm going to go to Create Swatch. And if I want to do the CMYK one, I can just click on that CMYK one. And then in my Design Central, all I have to do is hit the green check mark. And boom, just like that, we've got a CMYK color chart that we can use. Well, you say, what if I have something else? So if you look down here below, I actually have our default color swatch loaded, and I also have a Pantone, the newest V3 Pantone color chart loaded. So I want to actually create the Pantone for that, or the chart for that. So same process, view, create swatch, and current palette this time. So if I click current palette, the Design Central is going to change a little bit. So it's going to show me this screen, and then I can click here. So default or Pantone, whichever one I want to select. I'm going to click on Pantone. I'm going to hit apply. And now I've got an entire chart with just the Pantone colors. And I'm going to actually zoom out here a little bit so you can see it. This is actually a fairly large chart, but you could print portions of it if you wanted to, or whatever you want to do. This is a pretty big chart, but this gives you all those things right there inside the software. Really easy, fast, quick, print it, no big deal. I could grab parts of this if I want to and ungroup it, and maybe just highlight a portion and print that if I need to. So this is going to be a good way for you to get those customers colors as close as possible, especially with a customer who necessarily is not necessarily as picky. Using your eye and using these color charts is going to be a really easy way to do that. So let's switch back to
Aaron. I've got a couple of questions about this, because this is a really, really cool feature. Can you do any of the palettes that are built into Flexi Design? Because we have all kinds of stuff. We've got all the Pantone charts, the coded, the uncoded. We've got all of the Avery's. I mean, we've got all those. Can you do any of those?
Yeah, you definitely can. You can do just about any one you want. So,
and you can also do you can do your own custom palette, right?
I can. So
and palette from a file. If you bring in one file, you could just have it print all the colors in that file somehow, right?
So if I go to my view menu and click on color, I can click on open table, and all I would do is click on library, and then now here is our entire list of different types of color charts. So for example, if I go look for Pantone, I've got a whole list of Pantone color charts in here.
That's and that's pretty amazing. You got access to every single color chart, almost unknown to mankind in there, right? Humankind.
Exactly.
I mean,
and I can go in here and I could print off a color chart off of any one of these.
Right. Okay, that's really cool.
So yeah, this is once you get into the point where you've been printing and you need something to get close to a color, this is going to be that perfect solution for you. Let's go ahead and minimize that. So the next thing we're going to need to do is, if we really want to get the best colors that we want to do, you're going to want to calibrate your printer with either an onboard device or a handheld device. So that is where those two other options that we mentioned, the little color spectrophotometer, the one that's small, or color reader, and then the color spectrophotometer. So those are going to be the devices you're going to use to calibrate this printer. So, and this will be the process of going in and creating a profile and whatnot for each media type that you have. Now that's kind of a process in and of itself and has its own set of difficulties and different challenges. But if you want the best color on the block in your city, in your area, you create your own custom profile. So
yeah, we'll be talking about that next week too.
Exactly.
That process and some of the things.
Yep, we're going to go into that. Exactly. So we're just going to mention that here and then kind of move on. So what you're going to want,
Aaron, I'm sorry to stop you, but some printers actually have built-on calibration devices.
They do. Yep.
So they just need to run that calibration before they print the swatch. Exactly.
So a lot of your machines, check with the manufacturer, see if it has it. Some of the higher end HP models will already come with that pre-ready to go. And they have one in there. I think it's the 570, I think, that comes with one. So check with your printer, find out if it has one. If it has one, perfect. That's a perfect solution for you. You don't have to go out and spend more money on a color spectrophotometer. So the idea here then is that you would want to print one of these charts for every print mode. And you might start thinking, man, this is going to start getting crazy. I'm going to print a ton of these charts. Well, technically, yeah, because the problem is every material reacts differently with the ink. And so you're going to be laying down different levels of ink. The heat is going to be interacting with that a lot differently. And so you really want to make sure you print one for every mode. So if you have a high quality and a low quality, a super fast print and a super slow print, you both want them to be printed out. So this might be where printing a smaller color chart might actually be a little bit better, but that's kind of up to you. The other thing we always mention is just keep them out of the sun and reprint them whenever necessary. If they get damaged, if they get marred up, reprint them, because over time, especially if they sit in the sun, it's going to start to fade, and then the colors that you have on your chart is no longer going to match what you have on the printer. So just make sure and keep those up to date.
Yeah, we've seen that with some, a lot of print shops like to put this in their waiting room, that their lobby, right? Their showroom, and they'll fade in the sun over time. And they don't have to do every single print mode that they ever use, maybe just the top 3 that they sell the most of. Maybe just have 1 or 2 charts just for their top selling media to start with to see how well this works.
Exactly. That's definitely a great idea for sure. So the next thing we kind of want to take a look at then is how to, if you're going to use your eye to match this up, then we want to, as much as possible, pick the color that you're using. So every time when you print this out, you're obviously going to have that color chart open in Flexi, and so you'll match this up. One of the interesting things that we get all the time too is that maybe the Pantone color that you're trying to print, because of the profile that you're using, may not always match the Pantone on your color chart. So here's an interesting example. Let's just say Pantone 367C on this little picture here that we got. Let's say that's the color that we want to hit, right? And as we run our sample down our chart, it's possible that customer brings in a sample of 367C, and let's just say it doesn't actually match 367C. Let's say it matches the one right above it better. That's okay. It doesn't matter. As long as your printer is going to print out the same color, those 2 things can be different. And as long as they print out right, then you're okay. So it's kind of like a substitution thing. And a lot of that, again, comes down to what profile are you using, that kind of thing. If you're using a good profile that you've created or a reliable profile, those things are going to match up pretty close. If you're using a bad profile, you might end up having to go 3 or 4, maybe 5 or more Pantone colors down, shades down, to get the correct one, because your printer is really not printing it out correctly. So again, identify that swatch number and then use that, go back into Flexi, into Production Manager, and then we can do an ink sample point or a replacement for that color. So what about custom spot colors? Well, we've got you covered there too. If you have a custom spot color that doesn't necessarily find itself anywhere in a swatch book or a chart, we have the ability to make those adjustments as well. So for example, we can go into the Production Manager and use the global color mapping tool in order to create or fine tune a specific Pantone color that we're trying to achieve. We can do this by going to the setup menu, clicking on global mapping, and then clicking new. And then we get this screen right here that you see here. You're going to print that out, and then you're going to find the matching color. So for example, we're going to give it a color name. It says here we got the SAi logo, and we are going to input the values of what it is via CMYK. And then we're going to either do one of 2 things. We can use our color tool. And let's see if it shows it on the next page. It doesn't quite show it here on this page, but we're going to print out a red. And then once it's printed out, it's going to print out a chart just like you see here on the screen. So this is a shades of red. And if we look at our color swatch setting, these are in increments of 5%. So all these colors are slightly different by 5%. And you're going to print this out. And then you're going to select the one in the X and the Y that makes the most sense, or is the closest to the color that you're trying to achieve. So once I select that, you can see here that we chose X4, Y4. And so we're going to put that in, and then we're going to update the color. We hit update color, and then we hit print swatch. And then we actually print that out again. And you can do this multiple times. You should only have to do it a couple times, but depending on how far off you are, again, this might be something you do 2 or 3 times to narrow down that color to where it exactly needs to be. But this is how we can use this in order to get the correct color. Now, this is where this tool becomes really handy right here. So this tool here is used to measure color. Inside of the global color mapping, when you're in this screen, it allows you to set up a device or a measurement device. So in this case, we would set up our little color, measure color mobile or whatever it is that you're using via USB or Bluetooth, however that communicates. And you're going to actually set it down and measure the color that you think is the best or that comes closest to it. And you can go around and measure the color, and then that will pull in those exact lab values for you. Makes it really easy because sometimes your eyes can fool you a little bit. This makes it really nice in order to get that exact color that you really need. And so that makes that process of measuring which swatch should be it closer. So you can take the original color. So let's say you have like a little piece of paper or a print, and you measure the print that the customer gave you, and then you measure the print that the swatch your printer printed out, and they should be close. If we've done the process correctly, that's how it should be.
Great.
So let's actually take a look at this. Before we move on to questions, I want to show you what this looks like in the production manager.
Awesome.
I'm going to pull up the production manager. We'll go through a live demo of kind of what that looks like. So if I go to my printer here, I can go to my setup menu and click on global color mapping.
So as you're pulling that up, Aaron, let's talk a little bit about the specific use case that we're talking about here. So this is where a customer has come into the shop and they have a specific color they want to match. It's a custom spot color.
Right.
They don't know what the Pantone color is. They don't know what's going on. And we're trying to figure out what that color is.
Right.
And we may or may not have a measurement device. And we're gonna actually figure this out very, very quickly.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
That's the perfect example for this.
We're gonna add a new custom spot color to Flexi Production Manager like that.
Yeah. And so what you see here is you'll notice that when I open up the global color mapping, it actually loads up a default color mapping for Flexi. And so in other words, we use an industry standard global color mapping scheme or setup that is already in the software. So technically, if you're already printing one of these Pantone colors, there should already be a global value associated to it. So this is where we're going to hit that new button right here. So we're going to hit add. And this is where we can set up our device right here. So here we give it a name.
And this is the customer's custom color name.
Right. Exactly. This is the custom colors name, correct. So one of the things you'll see here is we've got a couple different options here. So an I1, an X-Rite, or a Spectrifacam. And these are the ones that we support through this window. So this is really nice because then you can, if you're planning on buying or creating your own profiles, you can go ahead and buy an X-Rite, and then you can also use it for this purpose too. It's not just for that, for scanning in profiles. You can also use it to scan an individual color if you need to. Right,
and those little handheld devices, those little inexpensive ones, those come with a mobile app. And what you'll do is you'll read it on the mobile app, and the mobile app will tell you the LAB, and you'll just enter the LAB there in that dialog.
Exactly.
You don't talk to the device directly in Production Manager. You just enter the values.
Yep, exactly. Those are they're via Bluetooth. So you hook them up with your phone, and then just like that, you pull up the lab values and you just type them in here manually. That's why we've given you the option to be able to type those in manually, because we know that if you're using some of those newer tools, it's going to give you those lab values, and that's important. So then once we're done, we can do some calibrating, we can hit the measure, and once we're ready, we hit OK. And it's gonna.
Now, what it's doing is it's creating that swatch, right? We're going to play color battleship, right?
Correct. Yep.
With the X and Y, and we're gonna play color battleship and pick the closest colors match.
Correct. Now,
it should kick out a swatch, right?
It should kick out a swatch, but I have a feeling that because I switched monitors several times, it might be. Let's pull in a file here.
Some issue with the printer settings, or?
Yeah, I think it might be. So it's not popping up. And well, I was switching monitors around today, so I have a feeling because it was popping up earlier and now it's not popping up. I think it's off screen. I was having some problems with.
Oh, the dialogue is often on their screen.
Yeah.
Okay, that's okay. Well, so everyone else who has Flexi, hey, can we pause there just for 1 second?
Yeah.
The tools that we're showing today, what versions of Flexi do those have those? Is it Flexi19, Flexi 12, 11?
So all of these tools are available from Flexi 11 onward.
Okay.
We have added some new tools to Flexi 19 that are actually pretty cool, that allow you to determine, if a color is even inside of your color gamut.
Out of gamut alerts.
Right.
On Flexi 19.
So
okay.
You can find that right here under your setup menu. Actually, it's under your printer. So you can.
It's the color report. Is that what you're talking about?
Color profile analyzers, right?
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
So I could go in and pick a color profile. I do not have any, so let's go back.
Yeah, we weren't ready to show that today.
No,
we should actually go through those new Flexi 19 color tools.
The idea there.
Yeah.
So the idea there is that in a circumstance, so let's say you get a file from a customer and you just are having all kinds of trouble hitting that color. Well, maybe it's a color that's actually out of gamut for you. And so you could take your ICC profile. So you load your ICC profile, and then you grab the file that you want to analyze, and then the software grabs it and analyzes all the colors inside of that file, and then it tells you with a little cool, neat little map. It shows you what colors are out of gamut. So you might find that, this red that I was trying to hit for this profile, it's out of gamut. I actually can't hit that. That's why I'm struggling with it so much. In that case,
colors.
Then you might want to reconsider and say, okay, well, maybe I'm using a bad profile, or maybe I should reprofile, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that tool is also used by sign and print shops to profile a new media to see if it actually hits the colors they need for customers. So when they're switching media brands, they can actually sort of tell, okay, we're going to switch from this brand of media to this brand. Can we still hit all the colors we need to? And it can really save you a lot of money and a lot of hassle in media purchasing if you use that media tool. So we should do another live one just on that tool alone. That's a very, very wonderful Flexi 19 tool.
Actually, that might not be a bad idea. In fact, when we're done with this color correction trilogy here, we might actually go ahead and do that.
Maybe we do a prequel or something like that.
Yeah. All right. So any questions out there for us?
How many do we have on YouTube?
Looks like we have 3 or 4 people, and it doesn't look like we have any questions yet. So
okay.
You guys that are watching, if you guys have any questions about any of this, let us know. Again, I kind of want to just go over some of those devices you can spend a lot of money on these devices for profiling, or you can get, some simpler ones. So our recommendation is you've got a couple different tiers really when it comes to those devices. And one of the devices is the regular X-Ray. It's a slide manual type one. That's going to be your cheapest option for creating a profile. And then you can go up from there. There's these ones called the Barbieris that are all fully automatic. Those are going to be very expensive. So if anybody is considering or thinking about color and making the switch to one of these devices, I would fully recommend picking up at least the base level X-Ray. You would be amazed how much different your colors can be for anything really. In fact, we just had recently, we were me and our tech support guy went down to a shop here local in Salt Lake City, and we were looking at, he wanted to use Flexi, but he said, man, I'm having a hard time with the profiles that you guys provide for this particular Mamaki. And so I was like, well, why don't we bring our machines over, our X-Ray, and we'll just make a couple for you. So we went over and we did that. And he was using Onyx at the time because he couldn't figure out the color. And I think we spent like 2 hours and we created like 3 profiles for him. And those profiles just blew anything out of the water. He said after that, those profiles printed way better than Onyx. So if you put in the time and do this, you will get amazing results. And yes, there's a little bit of a learning curve, and that's kind of why we're here to help you. If you have questions along the way, give us a call at tech support. We're more than happy to help you out. Reach out to us.